Cool. Well, I can start by saying I've spoken to Dan and Alison already, and I let them both.
Oh, great!
But I love the movie. I thought it was so good. I mean,
thank you so much.
It's made me apprehensive to ever stay in an Airbnb ever again. But you know, maybe that's not the worst thing. But I'm going to ask where the kind of inspiration for this story came from. I always feel like when you interview a musician and they release their first album, they're often songs they've had with them since they were kind of like a teenager. Is that the kind of case with a kind of first project like this? Is it kind of ideas and stories that you've had swirling around in your mind for some time?
Well, I've wanted to direct a feature for a long, long time. And I started about 10 years ago directing short films for the website funnyordie.com. And I wanted to take that next leap for a while, but candidly, I was a little bit nervous just because I knew that there would be a little bit of a spotlight on me and people would really be kind of scrutinizing my first film. And this idea, it came about, basically it was all inspired by my own paranoia about the concept of home sharing and thinking about how, you know, the United States is as divided as it's ever been and no one trusts each other, yet we trust staying in the home of a stranger simply because of a few positive reviews online. That being said, I still use Airbnb. In fact, I stayed in an Airbnb while filming this movie. And I think I was just trying to explore kind of that disconnect where we are all aware of the risks of staying in a stranger's home, but we never think anything bad will actually happen to us. So I guess this is a long way of saying, this specific idea hasn't been in my mind forever. But once I wrote the script, I actually wasn't originally planning on directing it, but I realized, I'm like, you know what? I know these characters and I know this story more intimately than anyone else. And I just feel like this is the one. And all those fears about directing a feature, they went away, and those feelings were replaced with just excitement.
Yeah. I mean, do you think when it comes, like you said, you stayed in an Airbnb during it, and do you think it is one of those things when it comes to privacy that ignorance is bliss? Because I guess if we were to think about who could be watching us at all times, you know, or where our information is going when we sign up to websites or what have you, I guess it'd be so overwhelming if we sort of let ourselves stop and think about it. Do you almost think that we have to just go, no, and just compartmentalize it and just think, I can't spend too much of my day worrying, because otherwise I'd spend all day worrying?
Absolutely. And I continue to spend all day worrying about this stuff, but I can't tell you how many people I've heard from who have seen the movie now who tell me, like, you know what, I can't believe I've never fully thought about the ramifications of staying in a stranger's home and what could happen, and how I willingly put myself in this dangerous situation. And so, I don't know, again, it's like going back to my own paranoia. Just in life, I'm the kind of guy who thinks that people are watching him, or like, I think people are watching me through my computer camera, and I think people are listening in on all my phone calls. And maybe there is some truth to that. But it's just this whole thing of always feeling like I'm being watched, which I guess is my number one fear in life that I'm trying to kind of infuse into this film.
Do you think that's heightened because you're in the public eye, because you're a celebrity?
I mean, yeah, to an extent. It's one of these things where even on a more simple level, like when I'm in public and paparazzi does kind of spot me, and it's not like people are following me everywhere, but like it's this feeling that is like none other in my life. It's like my heart just kind of stops when these people just jump out of the bushes, and there's literally nothing else in the world that makes me like feel like that, and it kills me. And yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you didn't know when you were writing that you were going to go on to eventually direct. Do you reckon if you'd known from the offset you were going to direct, you would have changed the way you wrote the story or the script?
I don't think so. What I can say is when I was writing the script, I was planning on playing the role of Josh, which ultimately went to Jeremy Allen White. And you know, as much as I wanted to cast my wife Alison as the role of Michelle, it would have been weird to do that with in that scenario, because she would have essentially been playing my sister-in-law, which felt a little strange. And so once I decided to direct the film, I made the choice to just focus on my responsibilities behind camera. And then obviously Alison was my first choice for the part. So I will say that it more changed just the casting process as opposed to the story.
And now you've done it, now you've directed, are you quite pleased you didn't take on a role in it? Just because I guess so I've spoken to some actors before who have given themselves a part and they've admitted that they've spread themselves a little thin when they do that.
I'm very happy it played out the way it did for multiple reasons. I mean, first off, Jeremy Allen White is such an incredible actor, and he truly brought things to the role that were not on the page. He just brought his own thing that I wasn't even thinking about. It just like really elevated the character to a different place. And then on top of that, yeah, everything you're saying, it's like, as director, there's just so much on your plate, and I can't even imagine having to go, you know, in front of and behind the camera and just keep going back and forth. And just this whole experience just made me so much more sympathetic to the whole process, because there's so many moving parts, and you realize, like, you know, if anyone is dragging their feet in any way, it could be really detrimental to the project. Where I'm going on a big tangent here, but like, for example, if someone is 30 minutes late to set, that might mean that you now don't have time to get this one shot that you've been planning for months, and you don't quite realize that. But when you're directing and you're part of every part of the process, it's insanity, and you need everyone just to be on their game. And I was surrounded by such an incredible casting crew, and they made my job a lot easier than it could have been.
Yeah. Have you acted since, and has that experience changed now you've directed?
Yes, I've acted in a couple of things since, and I was actually curious how I would be on set since this experience, and it's been great. It's actually been really great, where it's been really nice to only have to focus on one job. Also, I mean, I also can't really help myself. You know, I am so curious about every part of the process, and so I like to voice my opinion, and I try not to do it in an annoying way. I never try to step on the director's toes, but my mind's always moving, and I can't help that. But it is nice to just focus on acting too.
And speaking to Alison yesterday, she said that she was convinced that the part was written with her in mind, or she inspired that part. Is that the case?
It's a good question. I feel like it must have been subconsciously. I don't think I was like directly writing it for her, but I think that she was perfect for that role, because she has this very unique ability to balance heavy drama with moments of levity, sometimes within the space of a single scene. And that's a very unique ability, and very necessary for this part, where, you know, there's this long sequence in the latter half of the film where her character is, you know, just bringing a little bit of lightness when there's darkness all around her, and her juxtaposition compared to the rest of the characters just like hopefully adds some humor to the film, and yeah, it just takes you out of this like dark spiral that we're going down.
Yeah, I'd definitely be the character being like, can we just call the cops? That's who I'd be in that
Totally.
situation. Yeah.
Totally.
But there was a really subtle yet really essential moment early on when Sheila's character accuses the homeowner of racist profiling. And I think the most incredible part of that little scene is how silent her white friends are in that confrontation. How important was that scene to include in this, particularly the deafening silence of her friends? Because as a writer, I guess that your job is so often to input dialogue, but in that particular moment, it was the lack of dialogue, which was quite striking.
I mean, you nailed it. That's exactly right. You know, that scene and that kind of whole idea was inspired by, you know, friends of mine who have experienced racial profiling when trying to rent a house on one of these apps. And in that moment, you know, we used it in a way to kind of create an immediate rift between one of the renters, who is of Iranian descent, and the homeowner, who is white. And like you said, it's a situation where Sheila Van's character, all of her white friends are kind of forced to confront the fact that this homeowner is likely being racist. And what are they going to do about it? And you know, for them, they just don't really stick up for their friend. They just are silent. And I think I don't know, I think that's very relevant in the world we're living in right now. And yeah, we were trying to infuse it in a way that where we weren't beating it over your head. It was just kind of like, hey, this is the world we live in. This is kind of a part of you know, home sharing and kind of what happens in real life, and kind of a way to also make you start to question who this homeowner is and what his intentions are.
Yeah. So my final question, sort of two-handed question, is about what's sort of coming up next. I wanted to ask you quickly about Now You See Me Free, because obviously that's a franchise which is growing, and I just wanted to ask you where that sort of the status of that is, and also if you plan to write and direct soon, if you've got any kind of screenplays underway at the moment.
Yeah, so I know about as much as you about Now You See Me 3. They haven't told us much. I think they're currently working on the script, is maybe the last I heard. But I would love to go back and do another one of those, just because that cast, we've become somewhat of a family, and it is truly one of the most fun times I've ever had on any sets. And so I'm hoping for that. And then in regards to directing something again, Alison and I actually wrote something during quarantine for me to direct and for her to act in. And all I can really say about that is it's an entirely different vibe than The Rental. It is a romantic comedy. It's a genre that we both love, and you know, we just want to make something that hopefully puts a smile on people's faces right now during these hard times.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dave. It's been a real pleasure. I mean, it wasn't quite on top of a big slide in London, but it was nice to it was nice to chat to you again all the same.
Always good seeing you, man. Thank you for the thoughtful questions.
Love the movie. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,